Hey guys, well, welcome back to another episode of Holler Hill Homestead. I'm Caitlin, and today we're going to be making pickles. So I've got my cucumbers here, already washed, and let's get this done. Okay, well the first step is you're going to want to wash your pickles, obviously, and then we're going to slice them. Now, how thickly you slice these pickles is entirely up to you. A thicker pickle is going to give you a little more of a crunch, but it might take a little bit longer to marinate than a thinner pickle. I like to go about a 1/4 inch thick, so if you guys can see that there. I'm going to get all of these sliced up, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of salt on the pickles and let them sit. What that's going to do is the salt is going to pull the moisture out of the pickles, out of the cucumber I should say, and we want to get as much of that moisture out so that when it's marinating, more of that brine can get in. And these don't have to be perfect by any means. I have some a little thinner, some a little thicker. For some people, you might want to peel the skins off of these. I like them with the skins on. I feel like it gives them just a little more of a crunch. So we're going to get these sliced up, and I'll show you the next step. Okay, so I have my pickles all sliced. This made quite a lot more than I was expecting to have, so I prepped 8 pint jars. I think I might need a couple more. So I'm going to show you guys how to salt them, and then I got to go grab some more jars and get them washed. Really quick, this is my grandma's recipe. My grandma is still with us, and she's very dear to me, and I've been working on collecting a lot of her recipes over the years, and her canning recipes especially, ever since I started canning. The cucumbers came from a very dear friend. He picked them in his garden and gave them to me. These are going to be huge pickles, you guys. Look at the size of these. So I think it's going to take quite a few more jars than I had anticipated. It never hurts to have too many. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to sprinkle a little salt on the top. No real measurements here. You just want to get a little bit of salt on all the surfaces to start pulling that liquid out. So I'm going to salt them. I'm going to give them a little bit of a stir. Give them a little more salt. And what's going to happen is these are going to sit for about an hour. And when I come back to them, all that liquid's going to be on the bottom, and I can strain that off. Now this recipe is for refrigerator pickles. They're meant to be made cold and then stored in the fridge. But obviously with this many jars of pickles, I don't have that kind of space in my fridge. So we're going to can them. I've tried this before and it worked out fine. We kept eating them for up to a year and they were still good and fresh. I can't promise that this is a safe canning recipe, but the brine that we're going to make is primarily vinegar and sugar, so it should be perfectly fine. I haven't had issues, but if you're going to try this recipe, obviously proceed at your own risk, as with anything with canning. So those are salted. We're going to let them sit. I'm going to go get some more jars and I'll be back. Okay, you guys, this brine is a super simple brine, and oh my gosh, it is just the best thing. It tastes so good. So these are a sweet pickle. So we're going to use 1 part apple cider vinegar to 2 parts sugar. Now the recipe calls for 8 cups of cucumbers, and I think I have quite a bit more than that. So I just went ahead and I doubled this recipe so that I would definitely have enough brine. Now if I have a little bit left over, that's okay, but I don't want to be shy. And then we add some celery seed, and I like to add a little bit of turmeric to this as well. Now in the meantime, when we've been working on all of this, we're getting our canner ready to go. So I've had my water bath canner on heat, getting up to temperature, because that takes quite a while. And if you know anybody who does canning, they will tell you the last thing you ever want to do is put hot liquid into a cold jar. So I have my jars in my oven. My oven is at its lowest setting, and that's just getting those jars warmed up so that when we make this brine, it can go in the jars without cracking them. So what I'm going to do is I have my nice big stock pot here. I'm going to go ahead and turn her on to high, almost high, and I'm going to add my ingredients. So you really only need to process this until the sugar is dissolved, but I like to just give it a little bit of a simmer so that everything can marinate together and we can get all of the flavors in there. So that was our apple cider vinegar. There goes our sugar. And I'm going to do about 1.5 teaspoons of celery seed and about a teaspoon of turmeric. So let me get that all going. We'll bring this up to temp and then we'll be back. Well, you guys missed a step, but it's not a very complicated step. I'm going to go ahead and do 6 jars at a time because I think that is all that is going to fit in my canner. So these jars are nice and warm, not hot to the touch though, but it's okay to add warm liquids too. And I think I estimated just about right because that took about half of our cucumbers there. So this is that brine that we just made, and I got a little bit creative, you guys. I like to be creative in my kitchen. So right after I turned the camera off, I decided to try an experiment and added just a little splash of vanilla to this brine. I know what you're thinking. Vanilla and pickles. She's got to be crazy. But you guys, this brine is to die for. It is absolutely amazing. Looks like I need to get a little bit more. So what we're going to do is we're just going to, we took the cucumbers, we put them in the jars. We're going to fill right to about the bottom of the lid of the ring here. I don't like to go much higher than that. If you go too high when you're canning, sometimes the liquid can boil over and it will compromise your seal. So we will get a little more of this brine. It's over there in the pot. I'm going to fill these up. I'm going to put lids on them. I'm going to put rings on them. And then they're going to go in the canner. The canner is up to boiling now, and we're going to process them for about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to err on the safe side and go with 15, just because I don't remember what I did last year, but better safe than sorry. Well, here we are. The kitchen is now a mess, but that's what happens when you have a house that's lived in, right? Doing a couple dishes over there. Unfortunately, when you're canning is just a messy business. So trying to keep on top of the cleaning, but I'm going to show you guys what I did here. So I did way underestimate on the amount of broth I was going to need, or brine, I should say. I ended up having to make a whole nother batch of brine. And when I made that brine, I ran out of sugar. So these ones here are half sugar, half Splenda. They should still be safe for canning, but I will let you guys know how that turns out. I was able to fill 10 jars with the cucumbers, and then I had 2 jars left over and a little brine left over. So I had a couple zucchinis sitting around. I decided to make some zucchini pickles. So we'll see how those turn out. These guys are about ready to go in the canner as soon as these ones finish up. So they're in there fully submerged under the water, and basically what happens when you're water bath canning is that these are going to heat up, and then when they cool down, all that liquid, or I should say all the air in the jar, is going to push its way out. So the boiling of the jars sanitizes them, and then when that air pushes out, it's going to give it a really good seal, and it's going to preserve that food inside. Some foods are safe to water bath can. Some need to be pressure canned. These are okay for water bath. One other thing I wanted to show you guys here. When you put your lids on, you always want to wipe down the tops of the jars. This brine has a lot of sugar in it, and any sugar between the top of the jar and the seal can cause a seal to fail. So I normally use white vinegar, although I was out, so we're using warm water right now. You're just going to take that and you're going to wipe down the tops of these jars. Just to get any of that sugar off of there. Now these are my lids. They have been washed. You guys, I see this all the time. You do not need to boil your lids anymore. Back in the day, our grandparents, they had to boil their lids because this has a seal on here, and they had to soften up that seal. I'm sorry, you guys. See, I have a hand trimmer. It's just something that I was born with. I got it from my mama. You don't have to boil these lids anymore. Ball changed the recipe for the rubber that they use on these now, and it does not need to be preheated. So as long as your lids are clean, they can go right on the jar. Okay, so lids are on the jars. I'm going to grab the rings and put the rings on the jars. And as soon as these come out, the next batch will go in. Okay, second batch is in the canner. We're going to cover that up. We're going to set our timer for 15 minutes. And as soon as that goes off, that batch will be done. The ones I just took out are sitting here on the counter. Now you guys are going to notice the tops of these cans have a little bit of liquid on them, because when you pull them out of the canner, you want to pull them, this is your jar grabber here, you use it to pick up hot jars. You want to lift them straight out and set them straight down. You don't want to tip them because they are not sealed yet. And if you guys listen, you can hear that popping sound. That's the jars sealing as they cool off. So it's okay if there's a little liquid on top. When I first took these off, they were covered in liquid. That's not going to get in there. But you don't want to tip it to pour that liquid off, because what's going to happen is before the jar is sealed, this brine could get underneath that seal and compromise the seal. So you pick them straight up, you set them straight down, and then you can dry them off when they're on the counter. So that's that. These are my refrigerator pickles, and these are going to be shelf stable. I'm going to store these in our pantry, and I don't know exactly. I would assume that they could keep as long as 2 years. However, we go through them way faster than that because they are just so daggum good. If you didn't want to can them, the recipe is so much easier. All you do is you take those cucumbers and you soak them in salt like we did. You're going to make your brine up, but you don't have to boil it. You put the cucumbers in a jar, you pour the brine over the top, and you stick it in the fridge. We're going to let these sit for a minimum of 3 weeks so that that brine can really get in there and pickle it and turn it into a pickle. After 3 weeks, the longer it sits, the better they're going to taste, but I don't know if we can keep our hands off of them that long. All right, guys, well, enjoy your day. Thank you for watching Holler Hill Homestead.